horror films that influenced me the most were not the classic American horror films.
Roll camera and begin.
They were the German silent expressionist films of the 1920s. I think back specifically to The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Nosferatu, which I thought were true classics.
Many of Hollywood's earliest filmmakers were immigrants from Europe. They brought mythic monsters from the old world to new shores.
We people of the mountains believe at the castle there are vampires.
Dracula initially was sold first as a love story and as a horror film. But I believe one of the original advertising taglines was the strangest love story ever told. And so they don't mention that what's strange is that the main lover is a Nosferatu, undead.
You are too late. My blood now flows through her veins. She will live through the centuries to come, as I have lived.
It was the one that really established the idea, I think, of horror films.
Universal followed up with a new version of Frankenstein.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
It really is, and still is to this day, the Gothic thing that I always find myself drawn to. The period somehow seemed simpler and classier, you know, the way people dressed, the way people spoke.
Like heaven being with you again.
Heaven wasn't so far away all the time, you know.
And yet there was this, you know, like the Jekyll and Hyde story. There's this other side underneath that you wanted to get to, and that was, particularly for a boy, far more interesting, you know, that you could get this beautiful lady and then somehow you'd screw it up because you were really a monster inside.
Free at last!
Suddenly I realized the power I held. The power to rule, to make the world grovel at my feet.
Essentially, there are two kinds of horror movies. One is, it's all about where evil is, the location of it. So we can imagine ourselves around a campfire, and the wise man, or whoever, is talking to us about the location of evil, and he says the evil is out there in the dark. It's beyond the woods, it's the other tribe. It's the people that don't look like us, that don't speak like us. And that's the external evil, that's the other. The people aren't like us. But the other location of evil, same setting, the campfire and the shaman, the wise man says, actually evil is right in here. It's in our own human hearts. That particular story is a harder one to tell. It's easier to talk about the other. It's harder to say, I have met the enemy and he is us. We are the enemy.
Mr. Rainsford, God made some men poets, some he made kings, some beggars. Me he made a hunter.
During the 1930s, there was all the turmoil in Europe, the rise of Nazism. There was various problems that different countries were obviously having in establishing, okay, who's going to be in charge? What kind of forces are they going to unleash?
Ladies and gentlemen, look at Kong, the eighth wonder of the world.
Legend has it that Adolf Hitler's favorite film was King Kong.
We have to watch out for these people who are trying to consolidate and manipulate power and manipulate us.
In 1934, the Hollywood Production Code Administration decreed that all movie monsters must be destroyed by the end of every film, regardless of their motives.
The monster in Frankenstein had a sympathetic note. He was just as frightening and just as terrible as the other monsters, but there was a scene where he's at a little pond with a little girl, and you expect him to kill the little girl.
Who are you? I'm Maria. Will you play with me?
Instead, he is very friendly and affectionate to the little girl. And I remember when I first saw that, I was really surprised, and I would assume the audience was surprised too.
The Frankenstein story in and of itself was fascinating, but Bride of Frankenstein, you know, what James Whale did, the empathy that you had for the monster in that, and the fact that he wanted, you know, to love Elsa Lanchester at the end.
Friend?
As a very, very young kid, that had a really strong impression on me, you know, trying to find that other freak that doesn't want you either, you know, and then we all die.
Get away from that fever! You'll blow us all to atoms! We belong dead.
Even then, the most terrible